So what do we do if we have a low pressure or even no pressure situation at our guns? They just nothing to work with there. Well, we've got some really quick checks that we can look over and see where the problem is, and probably 95% of the time, if not higher percentage, you're going to find the problem real quick. So the first place we want to look at is your inlet valve to the pump. That's the one that comes off of your tank to provide water to the pump. That valve has to be open. In other words, that handle has to be linear to the valve. If that handle is sideways to the valve, then that valve is going to be closed. We're not going to have any water feeding the pump. The pump, as it spins, is not going to be able to generate any pressure. So if we verify that that valve is open, then water is feeding into the pump is spinning. As it comes out of the pump, we run into our first valve. This valve here actually isolates the water flow from the manifold or distribution block. So that valve, as we see here being illustrated, that valve has to be open or in line with the valve. That handle has to be in line with the valve. If that handle is closed, if it's gotten bumped, maybe there's been some maintenance done, whatever the case may be, if that handle is closed, you're not going to get any water into your manifold. In other words, no water is going to go out to your guns. So with that valve open, what's the next thing we look at? The next thing are our valves going to our guns. Yes, if we have these closed, one or more, that particular line is not going to have any water going out to it. Or if that valve maybe has gotten bumped, a hose has caught it or something like that. So now the valve is only halfway open. We're not going to have the flow that we need. Maybe we'll start off with good pressure and then all of a sudden it just drops to nothing. So those have to be open if we're going to have flow going out to those hoses there. The next thing we look at, if all of this is checked out so far, the next thing we look at is our dump valve. This is our pressure unloader valve or pump unloader valve. So if this unloader is open, now water is just going to cycle right back into the tank. And when that happens, the majority of your flow is not going to go out to the guns, it's not going to have any pressure to work with, and it's going to dump right back to the tank. So this valve, in turn, also needs to be closed. In other words, that handle is sideways to the valve body. The last one that we want to check at is back at the back of the truck, a valve very similar, smaller in stature, but very similar. And same thing, if that valve is closed, that's what we want to ensure that it is, because if that is open, we're maybe going to have a little more pressure and flow to work with than we would if this one were open up here that dumps the main pressure, but it's still going to be greatly decreased. We're not going to have a lot to work with, no punch, if you will. So those are the valves that we want to ensure are in their proper operating position. Once we verify that, we probably are going to cover 95%, even higher percentage as to problems that would exist that would give us that low flow or low pressure, no pressure situation.